Eritrea is strong and free, a beacon that's bright. With struggles behind us, we rise to the fight. Unity in our hearts, a journey through pain. Beneath the African skies, in sunshine and rain. Stand tall, stand proud, let the world see our might. Eritrea, land of the brave, we'll carry the dream. Together we rise, we're stronger it seems. Against all odds, side by side, hand in hand. In the spirit of our past, we conquer this land.
Let's begin by understanding the current situation in the Horn of Africa, specifically focusing on the relationship between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Think of this region like a complex puzzle where each country's actions affect all the others around it. The recent tensions began when Ethiopia's former president, Mr. Mulatu Teshome, made serious accusations against Eritrea through an Al Jazeera article. These accusations claimed that Eritrea was destabilizing Ethiopia and the broader region. But to understand if these claims make sense, we need to look at the evidence and context. Just like in mathematics, where we need to show our work, we'll examine each piece of evidence to understand what's really happening in this situation. In 2018, something significant happened. Ethiopia and Eritrea signed a peace and cooperation agreement. This agreement was meant to be a fresh start for both countries, similar to how pressing a reset button gives you a clean slate in a computer program. What's particularly interesting is that Ethiopia received crucial support from Eritrea during its recent Tigray civil war, which helped the current government maintain power. However, instead of strengthening this cooperation, Ethiopia's actions have seemed to go in the opposite direction. Think of it like making a promise to a friend, but then doing exactly what you promised not to do. Ethiopia has been harboring opposition groups against Eritrea, which directly violates their agreement. To really understand this situation, we need to look at what's happening inside Ethiopia itself. Imagine a house with multiple rooms, where each room represents a different region of Ethiopia. Right now, several of these rooms are experiencing serious problems. The Amhara and Oromia regions are facing significant conflicts. Much like how a building's foundation problems can affect the entire structure. Human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have documented serious issues, including mass killings and forced displacements. Think of internet blackouts like turning off the lights in a room. It becomes very difficult to see what's actually happening inside, and this is exactly what's occurring in many parts of Ethiopia. Let's examine Ethiopia's claims about access to the Red Sea, which is one of the most contentious issues. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has called Ethiopia's need for a seaport existential, but let's break down what this really means. It's similar to how we solve a geometry problem. We need to look at the boundaries that were legally established and understand why they exist. In 1993, Eritrea gained independence through a UN-monitored referendum, where 99.8% of Eritreans voted in favor. This is like establishing a clear mathematical proof. The colonial treaties from 1900, 1902, and 1908 clearly defined these borders, much like how we use axioms in mathematics to establish fundamental truths. Now let's analyze how Ethiopia's actions affect its neighbors, like pieces moving on a chessboard. One significant move was Ethiopia's Memorandum of Understanding with Somaliland, which created ripple effects throughout the region. Think of this like dropping a stone in a pond. The waves spread outward, affecting everything around it. In Sudan's civil war, Ethiopia has been accused of supporting the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, which is like adding fuel to an already burning fire. These actions form a pattern that we can observe and analyze, much like how we look for patterns in mathematical sequences. Let's evaluate the evidence using a systematic approach, similar to how we solve complex equations step by step. Ethiopia's state-controlled media has been consistently producing narratives aimed at destabilizing Eritrea. This is like looking at a data set. We can observe clear patterns in the messaging and actions. The presence of armed and unarmed Eritrean opposition groups in Ethiopia serves as concrete evidence of violation of the peace agreement. When we stack up these pieces of evidence, it's similar to how we collect terms on one side of an equation to see what we're really dealing with. Let's contrast Ethiopia's actions with Eritrea's approach to regional stability. In Somalia, Eritrea has taken concrete steps to help rebuild security forces, training thousands of Somali troops. This is like helping a neighbor repair their house. It strengthens the entire neighborhood. In Sudan's conflict, Eritrea has maintained neutrality and promoted dialogue, similar to how a mediator helps two parties find common ground. These actions demonstrate a pattern of constructive engagement, much like following a clear problem-solving strategy. Understanding international law in this context is like learning the rules of a complex game. The colonial treaties that established borders are like the foundational axioms we use in mathematics. They set the basic rules. Modern sovereignty principles build upon these historical agreements, creating a framework for international relations. Just as we can't change the rules of mathematics arbitrarily, nations can't simply redraw borders based on their current desires. This legal framework provides stability and predictability in international relations, much like how mathematical rules give us consistent results. The human impact of these political tensions is like calculating the real-world applications of our mathematical problems. When countries destabilize their neighbors, it creates ripple effects that impact ordinary people's lives. We can measure these effects in terms of displaced populations, economic disruption, and human rights violations. Think of it like a complex equation where each variable represents different aspects of human well-being. The solution must take into account all these human factors, not just political considerations. Looking ahead, we need to consider multiple variables that will affect regional stability. Think of this like solving for multiple unknowns in an equation. We need to consider all factors simultaneously. The path to resolution requires addressing both immediate conflicts and underlying causes. Just as in mathematics, sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant, returning to agreed-upon principles and international law. The stability of the Horn of Africa depends on all parties following these established rules and working together constructively.